Hello, Stereo Azimuth here, and today we're going to talk about something kind of controversial. We're going to be talking about cables, interconnects, RCAs, basically just like unbalanced cable. I have like 3 of them that I'm going to kind of talk about, and then we're going to talk about a little bit of the construction. But first, the first thing that I want to say, before we even get into anything, is that I think, and there's probably a lot of people that agree with me, that, cables probably make the least amount of, like, difference in your system. Okay. So if you think about your system, your speakers, your amplifier, your preamplifier, your, like all of the components itself are going to make way more difference than anything else. There are certain things with like power. Some people say, the power conditioners or power cables, but that's a different component. I mean, power cables probably even make even less of a difference than the ones carrying your actual like audio, like anything in the audio path. So, your mileage may vary, right? Like some people will make claims about their system and about like different cables, and that's fine. Like everybody, like we all have our own subjective experiences, and we all all have that. I do have theories about that, of why people think that like certain cables or power cables make a huge difference, is because we're used to hearing a sound a certain way, and then we make the slightest change and then we can hear it, but not everybody can because we're not listening to it all the time. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. What we're really getting into is 3 different kind of cables, and what I kind of like and dislike about all of these. And then I'll make kind of a recommendation of the cables that I like, and that you may like as well, that you may find that you also like. I mean, and these aren't like super expensive like cables. Like these are very sort of, I don't want to call them rudimentary, but they're, kind of for the everyday, audiophile, not for like super, I'm not talking about like, hundreds of dollars for your cables just to connect your equipment, but ones that like will actually sound good and carry the audio that we need, and not really spend a whole lot of money, like more than the item that we're actually plugging up is sort of worth. And if you want to go that route with your cables and spend that kind of money and do that kind of thing, then by all means do it, but at least do it with some knowledge, and hopefully this will video help out a little bit. So let's go over kind of what we have here. So I've got a few different cables here. I've got this is a monoprice cable. This is like probably the cheapest like interconnect that you can get. This is really short because these are like for like headphones. I think this is like 1 foot or 1.5. I don't remember. But yeah, it's just RCAs on a coax, RG 59, I believe, is whatever that this says. AWM style. Let's read what it says. RG 59U. You probably can't read that because it's small print. If you can, but yeah, that's what this cable is. Essentially, it's just RG 59, which is a type of video or 75 ohm cable, the same that you would plug in your cable from the wall, like to your TV, but instead of those F connectors, we actually have these like RCA connectors with this little binding here to kind of keep them together. And this is probably my least liked cable, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. Then we have these, which are like the like straight wires. These are PYST cables. This is what you get from Shit Audio, like if you order the interconnects from there, this is what you get. And these are fine little cables. They're also like 75 ohm, I believe, just straight wire. And I mean, these usually do in a pinch, but I don't, I think I find them a little bit expensive for what they are, but either which way, because they're just rather short and rather flimsy. Then we have these, which are my favorite, which are the World's Best Cable. Now, you can get World's Best Cable and a couple of different cables, meaning they sell Mogami, they sell Kaner, or Kanari, or however you pronounce it. And they also sell this Gotham quad cable. And we'll go over quad cable in just a second and why I think that it's better even for unbalanced connections. But first, let's talk about this. Let's talk about these. Monoprice. A lot of people have these. A lot of people use them. I find these, I mean, they work. They don't really break down. They, you will, I mean, they won't develop shorts in them. But I find a couple problems with them. Number one, it's 75 ohm cable. I'm not a fan of using 75 ohm cable for like unbalanced connection that are supposed to be like 600 ohm or something like that. The idea is that you're pushing the impedance of the cable like so low that it doesn't really have an effect. You're not really attenuating like the high end at all, which is, genuinely nice. But I find that, with this shielding and with this cable, like it's not very flexible. They don't really hold on to the connector as well, like on the other end. So when you plug one in, you go to plug the other one in, and this one comes out. Like, you plug the red one in, and then you go, okay, now this one's in. Then you go pull this one and move it around, and it pulls that one out. It's just very annoying. It's very stiff wire. It's not very flexible. And I find with audio that these can sound kind of hazy to be quite honest. They're not that much different than, standard cables that you might find at like Best Buy or something like that. I don't find them, just because they're RG59 or nothing. I don't think that it makes it anything special. I'm actually, I might split this and use this as a SPDIF cable. It's probably better used like singly as a SPDIF cable. So, same kind of thing for the PYST cables. They're just more flexible. I mean, these are shorter. I do use these like quite often. I don't find them quite as hazy as the Monoprice ones. But I'm not a super fan on them. They are single, so it doesn't affect whether one gets pulled out or not. They're very clearly labeled because one has a blue end and one has a red sort of sticker on it, and they are gold plated, which I like. And these are fine, but I mean, you have to realize that these two right here are like $20 or $25 for these two, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money for a very short connection. And when I feel like it's not really that particular. I mean, it is more flexible, but the sound quality is about still sort of maybe average to me. My opinion. Your opinion, hit me up in the comments if you think differently. That's fine. Then we get to this, the World's Best Cables, and I'm going to take this thing off because we don't really need this. But the World's Best Cables, this is Gotham cable. This is longer, but I mean, you can get them in shorter lengths. You can see it's very flexible. This feels like almost what you would have in a professional like microphone wire, and that's because it is. It's quad cable, meaning there are 2 connectors per like pole or per end, and it's technically 4 balanced connections where you need 3 connections, because there's 2 wires for what would be like the positive or the hot, and then there's 2 wires for what would be the neutral, and then there's a shield for the ground, which the shield, is the actual RF shielding on the entire length of the cable. And these particular cables are wired in a unique way. You see that there is a little flag here that says signal source, signal direction, and then there's a little arrow. So one thing I want to make clear is that, a lot of people claim about directionality in cables, which there is some talk about, like the way they pull the copper and all this other kind of stuff. But, you can subscribe to that sort of like crystalline, like science if you like. But really, we're just talking about enjoyment of audio, and I want like really good signal from one place to the next, okay? That's why they're called interconnects. So, but this has to do with the way that the wire or the way that the cable is wired. And to explain this, they gave this bit of paperwork, and I'll kind of explain. Let me kind of turn that around a little bit so you can kind of see this a little bit better. But basically what it means is, if you have a signal direction that is going this way, okay, you have, 2 ends. You have the, source end, and then you have your receiver end, okay? And that is the example that they give here. And sorry I can't put it all up on one page here, but and I'm afraid to move my camera because we might lose the focus here. But essentially, you see that there is a ground sleeve, and I'll try to use a pointer. Is that we have a ground is the sleeve here, and then the positive tip is connected, and that is also connected to the shield. So we have the 2 connectors. So this positive tip is actually 2 wires, remember, because it's a quad cable. And this is 2 wires, the other 2 wires for the neutral. And then the neutral is tied to the shield on the source end, on the wherever that your source is coming from, whether it's coming from your DAC, your CD player, your tape deck, your radio, wherever that it's coming from. Then it's going to go down the cable, right? And then we're going to get to this end, and then we see the shield is lifted. So the shield actually is not connected to the final destination. However, the electrical connection is still connected to the shield back here, okay? But you still get the connection to that neutral end to the connector. And this is a kind of a trick of like grounding schemes where the shield now is more of an extension of whatever that your source is. So if your source, whatever your grounding source, like shield, that is the shield, but it's not sharing, at least the cable only, carries the shield to, through this part, but it's not terminated to the connector. But, electrically, I know it's still terminated. The shield is still terminated, back here. So a lot of people will say, well, what, this is really like a trick with balanced cable. And yes, you are correct. Usually balanced cables do have this trick, and it does work a lot better with balanced connections. Where you would have the same thing, instead of like this would be, pin 2, and this would be pin 3, and then your ground is, connected to pin 1, right? Like it's not shared, right? It would be connected to pin 1, and then on your other end, your pin 1 would be lifted, and then you would just get the signal on the other end. You get, pin 2 hot, and you'd get your pin 3 to the neutral. And so, which is like a differential cable. But however, it's this still kind of can kind of work in reducing that RF and getting rid of the, sending the signal that's coming in from the shield, that's picked up by the shield, to the ground, on the source end and not your amplifier end where it's being amplified. That is at least the idea behind it. So, and then it goes on, at least on this, to like burn-in time and stuff like that. And I have my thoughts about burn-in time, which I don't really, I haven't really experienced a lot of burn-in time with cables, but some people have claimed that you can't have burn-in time, so I believe them. So that's what I'm going to go with. This is what the world's best cable looks like, and it has the Gotham. So, but part of the reason I like the cable is not just do they do this signal like sourcing and like directional this or that or the other. They also use these Amphenol connectors that are very sturdy, and they're very small and compact. They look, they're very gold plated. They keep the shield all the way, through the connector, and, they're very small and compact. And like I said, this Gotham cable, I've tried, Canary cable. I actually have some Canary cable of my own with different, connectors than this. Let's see if I have some around here. Maybe not, but anyway, and then Mogami as well. And Mogami has a very sort of like nice balanced sound, and Canary, this mic cable that I have is actually like Canary cable. It's very sturdy, and I like it for that reason. But then when I tried, somebody said try some Gotham cable, and I tried the Gotham cable, and I liked it quite a bit. It was very just like it just felt like a little more detailed, like a little less hazy. And that's always what I've kind of seen when I've gone from cable to cable to cable, like as I've upgraded. And when you test cables, and if you know your equipment well, and then you try a different cable, it's not so much like this one's brighter or this one's darker. I mean, you may run into that, but what I've always found is that I've always looked at audio like kind of with kind of the way that people look like with the lens, with a camera. And you either get fuzzy pictures where there's like not really clear defined lines, or you get something that's very sharp and in focus. And I've always gravitated to the sharp and in focus. And then like I said, it doesn't really mean that it's like brighter. It just means that everything sort of like comes into place. Like it doesn't sound so hazy. And that's the way that I feel like, you feel like it's out of focus or less hazy. And so I find the Gotham cables probably like the least hazy, and they're also very flexible. And it's great. I think they do well as far as shielding goes, as far as like signal. And you can look at tons of other specifications for cable and kind of make yourself crazy, like capacitance per foot, capacitance in between, the positive and the neutral, how much conductivity, how much pure copper that we're using, the solder that you're using. I mean, they're using, silver solder, the plating on the connectors. But, listening is always a subjective experience, okay? When you listen with your ears and you listen to audio, it's always subjective no matter what. I mean, it's fine to look at stuff on a chart and look at a chart. Just know that that's your enjoyment out of it. That's the chart, and not really like what you're experiencing with audio. So like I said, a little bit controversial, but either which way, world's best cables They're not paying me. This is not a paid endorsement. This is just I really like them, and I think that other people would like them too. And I will, endorse them completely without compensation, because I think that they make great cables, and I think that they are very accessible. You can buy them from Amazon in whatever link that you want, in whatever connector that you want. And they are, they have a 10-year warranty replacement. If anything should happen to the cable, anything should happen to the connector, they, they have a bunch of different, and I'll show you, these are, Amphenol, Gotham, Neutrik, Mogami, Sommer cable, Lava cables, Eminence, Canary, Neutrik, Reen. So yeah, they use a lot of it, and I don't even know they're located out of Delaware, and they do say that it is made with 4% silver solder, so they are using silver solder on those for those that are interested. And I think that and in since 1958, I don't know if that has to do with Gotham or World's Best Cables, but either which way, I don't think that you can go wrong with World's Best. And whether they're the world's best or not, I still think is a subjective thing and up to individuals. But I tend to like them a lot, and I think that other people will too. And you may have a preference for Mogami, or you may have a preference for Canary. Like, cables can be somewhat like system dependent as well. So I'll just go with that. And but I do think that they're built really well. And I'm gonna give you just a sneak peek. Let's open it up and see. Some people say, well, how is it? What does it look like under there? What is it? What can you tell me about the construction? I can't even get my cables to look this nice, okay? I'm not even going to show you mine and the way they look. But that is stellar right there. That is unbelievable quality. How they can get the shield all the way down, like, to the end. Everything's covered. It looks like nothing's ever going to touch. The collar is like holding on to the cable perfectly. It's like a, very perfectly made, and constructed cable, and connector. And, so, and there are others that might be better. There are others that, maybe even surpass and be so, totally great and carry, so much more, signal. And that's fine. But, they might be, $250, but it's not going to be like, about, $25 or $30, like for the world's best cables. So, like I said, completely affordable. And that is what I think. So if you have any thoughts, or you want me to go over anything else, or have any questions, or, want to ask me a question, or maybe you have an idea of a video that you want me to discuss, I'd love to hear about it. Hit me up in the comments. As always, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later.